Good morning and welcome. We're coming to you live from the PGA International up here in Palm Beach. It's 50 degrees. It's sunny. And
it doesn't get any better. This is why you live in Florida, because we're approaching February. It's 50 degrees, sunny and breezy outside, and we get to spend the day with the True Network and share and learn and grow. It's a fantastic event. Can't wait for Scott Smith to join us in a little bit.
So we'll have Scott is the CEO. He's a friend. He's a client. And we had dinner with him and the other speakers last night, which was a really cool opportunity. I did not know the speakers prior to last night. One of them, Mark's been sending me the content, and I never put the two together. And here I am sitting next to the guy, and he just puts out a humble, great guy. He'll join us today, David Klein.
Dave Klein, who does great stuff in leadership and management and has a great newsletter and just constantly shares great content. And then Carl Richards was the other guy who was with us. Carl is the keynote. Everything about his content is about the relationship with money. He's got a podcast about it, which was really cool. And I'm looking forward to hearing him speak this morning and see if I can pull out a nugget or two for myself.
I mean, I think one of the things I love about Scott is that he is a information hound. He's Khan's vacuum. He's just, bringing in information. He puts on these events for people who are members of his tribe. And so all good stuff. We'll have our friend Lori Kay join us in a minute. But you got to talk about football yesterday, right? Just a quick little
unbelievable
day.
The NFL product continues to be great. We're going to have Taylor Swift in the Super Bowl, which I think the majority
we'll have Taylor Swift on the Huddle as well. So.
I think the majority of the country was rooting against having Mahomes in another Super Bowl, but we're going to get it. He's there. He's solidified himself as one of the greatest of all time, in my opinion. 4 out of the last 6 years, he has been in the Super Bowl.
Incredible.
If he can win this one, he'll notch his third. And I don't know how you get better. And he's got so much time to go still. He's still early in his
29.
career. He's still early in his career. If he does it for another 10 years, he's got the opportunity to surpass everybody in just the accolades. So very cool to see that. And then an absolute meltdown from the Detroit Lions yesterday.
Yeah,
sad to see.
Two disappointing things for me yesterday. Number one, Lamar Jackson didn't show up. And so whether it was the defense that shut him down or choke or however you want it to, he didn't show up for a guy who played all year, and that the whole team, I thought. So coaching?
Yeah, I mean, it's all, especially in football, right? Like it takes all 11 guys. So we'll point the finger at Lamar. I'm not going to watch the tape. I don't get to watch the tape. I can't break it down. That's the responsibility of being a leader, is you're going to take the brunt. But they're going to know. I mean, look, there's guys that fumbled on the 1 yard line. I'm sure there were plenty of breakdowns in the pass protection. They weren't able to run the ball as successfully as they have done throughout the years. So as a leader, you always have to take the brunt. You always have to take the responsibility. Whether or not it was actually his fault, I have no idea, but it was definitely his responsibility.
Definitely his responsibility. Jonathan Aarons, you're spot on. There is that theory that it's a script, and who's ever writing that script is an absolute doozy, because the twists and turns and the plots, what a shame Dan Campbell doesn't get there. But we want to start with our hit parade of guests. Shay, wake this thing up, and on the other side, we'll spend some time with Lori Koznitsky. She didn't bring any baked goods. All right, guys, The screen just got a whole lot better looking.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks
Why
for
don't you do
having
the
me.
introduction?
Lori Kozneski from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Glad to be down in the warm weather.
Yes.
So I think, we've had you on the
50
show
degrees
before.
is like warm to her. I'm freezing my ass off.
To remind everybody,
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And
So
I
that's a
beat
couple
you
years.
at cornhole. That's when we met. Yes, when I beat you.
Cornhole, that's right, man. She's so competitive. It's not even funny.
And so Lori was a part of the community, and in and around the Huddle, her and I had never had a conversation before, so I reached out to have the conversation. And as anybody who meets Lori, they have an unbelievable conversation. She's so full of energy and such a great person. But I learned that there were a ton of ways that I could connect her to a good friend of mine who was coaching at the University of Pittsburgh.
Is that Taekwondo?
And it was Taekwondo Underwood.
Wow.
And so that led to them being on the field and having a great experience. And the family got closer. And then last year, we got to go to Pittsburgh
Which was super
to
fun.
speak to the Institute for Entrepreneurial Excellence, which that name always fires me up. And we had a great time speaking to them about modern business development, which we'll be talking about today with the True Network. And our relationship continues to grow and be
It
fruitful.
does.
So here's my question. So you took time out of your busy schedule. You flew here. What's your expectation? Because, we've been asking people. Scott has does an amazing job of building these out throughout the year.
Mhm.
Same people come regularly. These are the owners of individual companies that come together. What's in it for you?
So, I mean, obviously the speakers are always phenomenal and I take so much away from that. But then it's being with the other owners and being able to talk about issues we're having or, hey, how are you guys doing this? And it just, again, we get so much better after we come here and we go back with all this great information and I'm able to share that with our team and say, hey, did you guys know that we could do this? And
Wow.
here's some new partners we met. So it exposes us to so much for being in, Indiana, Pennsylvania, and Pittsburgh, to the whole country. And so it's really a great opportunity to learn.
I mean, Jake did a random polling last night and walked around asking that question.
Mhm.
And I think most of the people said it's the peer-to-peer interaction, very similar to what we do on GOTV. We put professionals in a platform where, that monthly call is based on the same involved in that.
So I actually want to ask that question then. How is what we do in GOTB with the virtual monthly call and what we talk about there and how you've grown through that, how is that different than this other than being virtual and in person?
So I think, the with True, it gets very much into the weeds in insurance and what we do.
Yep.
But what you guys do is the overarching for everything that we have to do in our business that it helps us to be successful. So, you can understand the products, but really what you're doing helped me sell my firm, helped me sell my people, helped me get organized.
You'll get your
that-
fee,
It's a
for,
paid-
you'll get your
Yes.
fee after the show.
Okay, good.
It's a paid endorsement.
I love that you pointed that
I'm
out.
not an actor.
I love that you said that because I think that's really the difference when people understand, like, oh, well, I'm already a part of this network or I'm already learning here just because I don't think there's enough learning groups that you can be a part of.
No.
One that's very industry specific, one that focuses on a certain aspect of a business, one that looks at holistically the entire process and organization. That's really awesome.
What's interesting when you say that is that sometimes you learn something in one group that you actually bring to the other group.
Mhm.
That becomes, instead of learning, you're the actually
Yep.
the one
Well,
teaching or coaching or
Yeah,
in an informal setting.
and when I'm with the True Network, we're all in the same industry. When I do my monthly call with you guys, everybody's in a different industry, and so you learn how they're handling situations that might be completely different, type of work than you're doing, but you can apply it and learn
Find
from
the
it.
similarities.
Yeah, and it's like looking for the patterns that match, and then going from
Love
there. So it's
So you have to make us one promise.
yes,
Because we got Scott waiting in the backdrop.
yes.
Scott's going to visit with us for a few minutes. When do we get our meatballs?
Well, I'm going to make you meatballs.
If you haven't seen her episode, it's the Huddler in the Hot Seat. Make sure to look
We
it up.
also went through this holiday season without any peanut brittle.
I know.
So
I did not
feel
make
like
any peanut butter.
The crowd is roaring.
I'm sorry.
Make sure you do that for us, okay?
Yes,
Always
I
a
will.
pleasure.
Love you
thank
guys
you,
very
love
much.
you, great to see you.
Good to see you too.
See you.
Bye, Huddlers.
And
Well-
now, the one and only Scott Smith.
What's up, everybody?
Scott, what's up?
So if I'm
Good morning.
if I'm being totally candid, which I try to be, I get as much out of our relationship as I think you do. So it's
I hope so.
it's I have so enjoyed watching you grow this business. So share with everybody, what we're doing here and how you built this absolute juggernaut.
Well, lovely location, PGA National. You probably covered that this morning.
Yes.
So once a year, all the owners, all of our clients, the owners of these employee benefit insurance agencies, we get together. You may have covered all this together. But
No,
No,
it's
no,
perfect.
we were
It's
leaving
perfect.
for you. Yeah.
So it's one of our brand events, the True Owners and Practice Leaders Meeting. And so we have 86 employee benefit agencies that are clients now, and 67 strategic partners. So folks that kind of want to sell into
Like
the
us.
network, like you.
like us.
We typically have it at a sort of a high-end resort, golf involved. We want to make that a draw.
Yeah.
East Coast one year, West Coast the next. And
Yeah, I
it's-
think San Diego was last year.
yeah, Del Mar was last
right.
year, and we'll announce the location for next year at the very end. So we'll kind of
Nice.
build to that. And it's been a cool experience. You get all your clients, and like all the decision makers are at the same place at the same time. So you have them in front of you, but it's peer sharing and fun, and we've tried to be impactful with the business, but wrap a really good culture of fun and
Oh, you have that.
You crushed the impactfulness,
Yeah,
and I
I
want
mean that.
to dive into that
Yeah.
question because having 86 people that you're responsible for,
86 companies.
Yeah.
86 owners.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
this is an owners meeting, and you're responsible for the impact that you're going to create in this event. How do you decide what problems you're going to tackle? What speakers you want to bring in?
Yep.
How do you figure out what that impact is going to be that you're trying to make with everybody?
So you start with a purpose.
Yep.
We for every event, really for everything we do, and the team's pretty good. The True team's pretty good about keeping me in check with this if I forget. So we have a purpose for this event. The number one thing is to provide connections to allow relationships to prosper.
Mhm.
Because the best thing we can do is get folks like Lori to identify with 3 or 4 or 5 people that can help her grow the business.
Yep.
So number one purpose is we step back and take a look at the agenda and say, is there time in there for the event to breathe, for you to have relationships? A lot of times at the events, the best parts of the event are at the breaks,
Non-scripted.
Yep.
not in the meeting
Right.
room.
Right.
And so that's first and foremost.
Yep.
Second, we want to elevate best practices. So when we look at the agenda, we have to, we have 8 of the owners that are giving what we call right here, right now presentations. They're 15 minutes long. It's like, hey, what's happening? What am I doing right now that's really working well that my peers would like to know about?
Mm.
So we make sure to build
That's a
those
cool
first.
opportunity for people who may not get the opportunity to be on stage or
Yeah.
whatever.
And it's really, and sometimes, the really cool stuff is not what you think. So when you really dig in, I'm lucky that I'm in that business, or I was in that business forever, so I can identify best practices. And so we've got 8 of those. And then we want to be smart and interesting. And so we reach out to speakers that are engaging.
Do you know any good ones?
I don't know. What are you guys doing here? And so, for example, we did not have any really good sales, business development content at this one. And it's a top 3 need of the agencies. So you guys are here for that. But we've got Dave Klein, who you'll see with management leadership. Carl Richards, we had a great dinner last night with him.
Unique, man.
Carl
Very
is a
unique,
very cool
smart
guy.
dude.
If you don't know his podcast, it's 50 Fires. It's about purpose, meaning, and money. And so we have Jim Vandehei, the CEO of Axios, so a big heavyweight in media. Also founded Politico, and then is just a really interesting guy. So we start with that. It's a purpose.
Yep.
Right. What are we trying to accomplish? And then we wrap that around with the fun and the engaging stuff.
And you do a great job. I know in times when I've spoken in the past, the other speakers range from my friend Mama J,
Yeah.
who is the top voice coach.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think she could offer? And everybody loved. And a couple of times with you. I think Archie Manning was that the last
That was
one?
last year. Archie
Yeah,
Manning.
yeah. Which you did a fireside with Archie
Mhm.
Manning, which like that was so different and so cool. So I think, and I've told you this, your creativeness. This is an outlet that you don't generally find with people in the insurance business. Sorry.
No, I've said it before. I'm a creative trapped in the business world. I'm giving one of my first ever keynotes at the end of this event. Part of something I'm going to talk about is, call it late bloomer. I started this business when I was 45. I had a measure of success before, but nothing like has come in the past 8 years. And it happened when I truly became I became more self-aware, which led to me being able to be myself. Because I'm silly. Like, we're going to open with a cold open skit. Nobody knows what it is.
Right.
It's
Well, based on what I know you've done in the
it's
past,
silly.
it'll be silly,
It's
right?
just silly. So,
But you instantly make yourself, you make the room comfortable by making fun of yourself, of having that fun. Then anything's possible. You've set the bar that way.
How did you? This I think is the number one thing that people struggle with, especially in leadership, but just in general, is that self-awareness.
Yep.
Is being comfortable in your own skin, knowing what your own skin is, and being able to recognize the way people react and respond to you. How did you develop that? What was the exercises, struggle you went through to come across that?
this is a spoiler alert for my presentation.
Well, they're not going to be there.
They're not gonna be there.
So
I actually talk about it. Like, everybody talks about self-awareness.
Yep.
But what's interesting is some of the people that talk about it the most are the least
don't
self-aware.
have it.
And I was like, how was that? How can that be?
Nugget.
Right.
And I
thought, well, how do we do a self-analysis on ourselves, right? Like, so when you look into it, so two of the things I think people can do, number one is build a list of your strengths. You got to go outside yourself a little bit. You can trust your instincts a little bit, but you've got to go outside the people you admire and respect, because they're going to see the blind spots. But I mean, literally write them down. Like, write down your strengths, and conversely, write down, I don't like to call them weaknesses, so I call them your not strengths. So write those down, get some input on that, because I'm not the smartest. I'm not the most kind, even though I talk about kindness. I'm not the best speaker. I'm not the best leader of people. I'm not the silliest. I could talk to all the things that make up who I am, but when you put them all together, I'm like in the top percentile of people who have those unique skills. So then you can take that and say, okay, well, what can I apply that to be like a superpower? And mine happened to be being on stage, developing relationships with really interesting people, making people feel comfortable, giving an environment to grow. But you really have to go through that exercise to say, okay, who really am I? But the thing is, you can't spend too much time, because then you get in your own head and you're not.
Can't drink the Kool-Aid.
You're like, oh, who am I? What am I? The meaning of life, all that stuff. But enough to be like a real deep dive into looking at yourself. So there's more, but that's the.
Well, I know that you're really busy, so we don't want to keep you. What's the one thing you've noticed in all of the businesses you're working with that is changing the most rapidly, if you will?
Changing the most rapidly.
Because business is changing. I think
Always
the rate of change, and maybe you can address how people are viewing AI, or how are you using AI, or what is that thing that's changing?
All right, maybe a hot take here, maybe controversial.
Good.
I mean, not controversial. That'd be exaggeration. I think people are moving too quickly away from understanding how important relationships are.
Yeah. Amen.
This is, maybe it's because it is a strength of mine, is developing relationships. But I am continually looking for smart people that are interesting, that have something good to say, that are giving to others. And when you can connect with that person, it's super meaningful. And one or two or three relationships can change the trajectory of your life.
Fantastic.
All right, dude.
Thank you,
Thank you. We'll see you in a little bit.
Thank you, guys,
Yep.
for all
Great to
you
see
do.
you. Yes. And now,
See everybody.
coming to the show, fellow speaker, fellow leadership lover,
Yeah.
Dave Klein.
Mr. Dave
Welcome
Klein.
to the
Good morning.
Nudelberg
Good
Daily
morning,
Huddle.
man. Everybody say hello to this man.
Great to
We had
see you.
the honor to have dinner with him last night. And as I said at the open of the show, I I knew the content before I knew him. So welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks for
I didn't
being
ask you.
here.
Is this like Noodle Nation? What do I do?
Well, so that everybody here is called the Huddlers.
All
You
right.
can see all the comments. And just about every morning, there's a select group of the same people. Then there's people who pop in and out. We get many more who do not comment. But it's an audience of people who are looking to listen, learn, start their day off right. So share with the audience.
Wait, so
Okay.
we're going to have you on as other or not.
All right.
And give you the time you deserve. We've got a few minutes left here. I want to ask you the question because I think everybody is a leader, because you have to start by leading yourself in order to lead other people. You work with leaders all across the globe, all different sizes. What's the number one issue that you're dealing with the leaders that you're training and coaching? Put you on the spot.
He
I
loads
like
it up. He
that.
loads it up.
Okay, he's like, woo! Have you got
You
the
know,
coffee?
we've been up since 4 o'clock.
Yeah, it's like
That's true.
afternoon
You guys have been
already.
up. Look, this one will probably come as a surprise. I think I'll go to the mistake side.
Yeah.
I think the one mistake most leaders make is they don't set clear enough expectations. And it's one of those things where we just assume, isn't it intuitive? Isn't it obvious? Like, I know what my people want to do. Like, they know me. They know what I expect. And time after time after time, you sort of go in. I used to get called in to like clean up messes. Back in my 10 years at Bridgewater, we go through these diagnosis processes, and like 85-90% of the problems were that either the leader had a different path they wanted to go, or the person was being creative and didn't just mention like, oh, I'm going to go try this creative thing. And so if I were like, you give me one shot.
Yeah.
I'm like, just spend the extra couple minutes setting expectations, and not just not like go open your territory and close 20 clients, but how?
Yeah.
Do I do that through cold
Deeper,
calling? Am I
right.
going to do that through content?
That's
Am I
the
going to do
winner.
that through relationships
Right.
like
That's the winner.
Scott? Like, what's the path?
The how is where, if you're a real leader and you have vision, you have to
Yes.
share the vision of, here's what I want to do and here's how I see it happening.
Yeah.
And if you need resources,
Yeah.
I will be there to do it.
Or you can even be vulnerable and say,
Right.
like, I don't have a how. I want you to be creative. How about these
This
three?
is where you can
These are these
expand.
3 experiments. Where do we draw the line?
So it comes to communication, right? And is it always better to over communicate rather than fall short of under communicating and not setting the expectations the way they should be?
I'll give you a yes and.
Okay.
So yes, and I think that sometimes you feel the burden as the leader to be the one to close the communication gap.
Yeah.
But you can also just do it through great questions. Like you can make it a dialogue, and the good part about the questions is now they take the pen, they write the story, and people will
Full on engagement.
and people
Right
will
there.
stick with the story they write.
Yeah.
They might not live your story.
Awesome.
The Socratic style of coaching. Is this going to be what you're talking about today, or can we get a little teaser of what's? Or I guess tomorrow. When are you?
Tomorrow. I'm tomorrow. I'm
I'm
tomorrow.
gonna miss you tomorrow.
I know. I'm sorry.
Well, is this a little teaser of what's going to be on tomorrow?
That's going to sneak in there in a little bit of a way. Yeah,
Okay.
I've got probably the 7 leadership lessons I learned. So that's thinly veiled mistakes. So Scott will call them strengths and not strengths. I'll call them weaknesses.
Yeah. Okay. I love
So
it.
where do people find you online?
Well, I can tell you right now, you guys can go to my post from this morning. I tagged Dave. I also tagged Craig, who's the other speaker who's kicking off this morning. So it's an easy way to directly get to him through LinkedIn, but also you're on Twitter, correct?
Yeah, LinkedIn's great. I'm on Twitter at @declinei. And we've
Big
got
Twitter fan. That's an outlier for me. I'm I touch Twitter, but more than likely stay away from it. And you're fully on, man.
I'm on. Hey, I wanted to ask you guys a question.
Yeah.
Is that cool? So last
Wow. Oh, yeah.
no, so last night we were talking about family businesses and running, and like partly the importance of like authentic dialogue, right? We'll talk about that with our leaders as well. Like, how do you create just like a space? And we'll talk about it as a ritual.
Yep.
Right. Like, is there a ritual where you can give feedback? And I was thinking about it this morning. I'm like, oh, like you got to all these coaching backgrounds. When we tell people about it, it's like game film.
Mhm.
Like there's a safe space where we pull it up and we look at it and objectively say like, oh, you crushed this. Let's do that again. We're going to run that play again next week.
Or conversely, right.
Not really the best route.
Right,
I was
yeah.
sort of curious, like, have you within your organization, have you guys built a ritual or like that sort of feedback? Are you guys looking at game tape?
So every Monday, I would say, is our game tape evaluation, which similar to sports for us when we were in college football, it was every Sunday where we were coming in and watching the game tape. And that's the thing about sports that I think people in business don't really get is you're really doing it every day in sports. Every practice is getting evaluated. So we try, I think, to create that feedback loop, which is what I call it, to be as short as possible. The time that an action happens, how quickly can we get the feedback to that action?
Quarterly reviews are a joke.
Oh,
But every Monday, we're coming together to review what happened the last week and dive into it and say, hey, where am I going wrong here? I'm not getting a response from this person, or here's who I'm working with in our client base, and it seems like we're struggling with them a little bit. Where can we change it up? Where can we get some perspective and some feedback and try to do that? So our ritual, I would say, is every Monday, but none of us are afraid to hit a text or to pick up the phone immediately after something happens and go, hey, I want to talk about this right now.
I'll just add
assuming
this.
that it works.
I'll add this, that you need to create the space for that to happen. You know, in sports, it's an expectation. You play and then dissect the film. So there's a dance that happens that doesn't happen in business.
Right.
So we have our Monday meeting very orchestrated. First is personal. Anything that we need to know that's going on, there's a few minutes and we have it timed. So it's very clockwork, bang, bang, financials, events, you know, new ideas, you know, so there's a heading that says, okay, anybody have any new ideas? What's working? What's not working? What's coming up? What should we be thinking about? So it's every problem that I've ever encountered in another company comes down to communication. Every single thing, somebody's not communicating something. And to your point, more often than not, there's such a gigantic disconnect that we're not smart. We just see it differently because we're not in it.
Right.
Like they're in it.
Hard to
And
see it.
we're not. So
the number of times you're coaching somebody and you're like this, and this, and you sort of look back at yourself and you're like,
it's
exactly
fascinating,
right.
but
That's
I can't
exactly
wait. I'm disappointed I won't hear you tomorrow, but can't wait to have you on the show. Can't wait to further engage with you. It was a delight having dinner with you last night. It was
And I love that
actually
you're wearing
mature. It was actually it was a mature conversation last night.
Yeah, it was awesome
It
stuff.
was really cool.
thank you for having me.
Thanks for being on the show.
being on.
Can't
We'll
wait
make
to your
sure-
mother on the hot seat. You guys have a great rest of the day. Kick off the week the right way. We will see you tomorrow. Let's get down to business.
Please don't worry about me. I'm about to let my heart speak. My friends keep telling me to leave this. So let's get down to business.